LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
This episode is brought to you by Workday. Workday is the next-gen ERP powered by AI that actually knows your business. It helps you handle the have-to-dos so you can focus on the can't-wait-to-dos. It's a new Workday.
Every sip of Coca-Cola brings you closer to the excitement of the FIFA World Cup 26. Because nothing compares to the joy. So grab a Coke and drink in the FIFA World Cup 26. No purchase necessary. 13 plus in 50 U.S. states and D.C. with a web-enabled device. Ends March 1st with 8 entry periods. Rules at cokeurl.com/soccer rules.
Dripping in gold? That's cool. Dripping in Velveeta's supremely creamy golden cheesiness? That's respect. Elevate your drip with Velveeta's range of outrageously delicious dips and dishes. Shells, cheese, melty blocks, and heat and eat queso that go all in on indulgence. Flex on your fam with a creamy, cheesy masterpiece and go all in on what you love with Velveeta. Respect the drip and satisfy your cravings. Bring home the drip with Velveeta.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Master Leaf Theater. We are calling Bad Sports Science. We are doing this during the week of the Olympics when the NHL players are still off. And if you're a regular listener to Islanders Anxiety, you'll know that we did a couple of episodes where we did rather lengthy editions of Master Leaf Theater, a little bit too lengthy for my liking. We were talking more about the Leafs and making fun of them more than we were really talking about the Islanders. And so I wanted to dial back the bits, but at the same time, you know, time waits for no man, and neither do the Maple Leafs. And they keep doing weird, stupid stuff that ends up becoming a story in their weird, stupid world that their writers love to cover. And so we had these couple of pieces here that we thought would make a great standalone episode, and we're going to do that now while the Islanders are still on break. And Mike, I know you and I have talked about this story. It's the kind of thing that only can happen to the Leafs, in that it's a totally normal thing to happen for an NHL team that suddenly becomes a huge goddamn controversy because somebody's got to write about it. And then the team has to talk about it. And before you know, it's a whole thing. So I know this is the kind of story that you love. And you really enjoyed this particular like stupidity the corner from this corner of Toronto.
Yeah. And I think the key part of your intro there is that this stuff only happens to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because outside of the NFL, which is, you know, covered like basically an election night every Sunday and basically a 24/7, 365 these days with the way that things are paid attention to and the nitty gritty they get into and how those franchises work and such. I would say that the Maple Leafs are the standalone when it comes to these kind of stories. Unless something like nefarious happens. You know, if someone's doing something under the table or whatever, maybe something illegal, maybe someone's buying a team that doesn't have any money. But yeah, other than that, like this kind of story, I don't want to say a staffer, but I think that's what this person would be referred to. Yeah. Like a backroom staffer losing their job. Definitely doesn't become a story with the Islanders. I mean, maybe it's like a little footnote before the season starts. Islanders hire new, whatever. But it doesn't get this kind of treatment, which is a gumshoe like walking around Toronto with his magnifying glass and his Inspector Gadget hat, trying to be like, I think I've solved the problem here.
Right.
I know why the Leafs are losing all these games, and you won't believe what the answer is. But yeah, this is This is a truly special one. And as you said, like we were really going. I mean, we didn't have a choice. That's the first thing, right? Like you said, we were really giving it to the Leafs and talking about the Leafs much too much, because we were talking more about them than the Islanders. But during the Mitch Marner circus, it was, I mean, that's what we were made for, right? So we had to do it. And as you said, it was just a few days later, they put one in the wheelhouse for us, and we sat on it and we waited for the right time to get our chance to sink our teeth into it. And a 2-3 week whatever break this is the perfect opportunity. And as you said, it gives people the opportunity to choose if they are sick of listening to Master Leaf Theater or if they want to do it and by putting it as a standalone. But I'm definitely not sick of doing it, so I'm here.
Yeah, definitely. Oh no, we're not sick of it at all, but I just don't want other people to get sick of it. But yeah, so this is a really unique opportunity we have to really go to town on a story here, and it's actually multiple pieces that we're going to be looking at here, all part of the same. Well, 3 of them are part of the same thing, and one of them is a separate thing. And yeah, this is kind of a side story. So like I was thinking about it today. If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, of J.R.R. Tolkien, you may have heard of the Silmarillion, which is sort of like some myths and backstory about, the centuries before the Lord of the Rings happens. This and the Hobbit happens. This is sort of like that. Like it's not a necessary thing to read, but if you're a fan, I'm sure that it'll have more backstory and more mythology that you'll appreciate. And to bring these stories to life, we brought on a special guest. He's an Islanders fan. You've probably seen him around social media. He's a big fan of Master Leaf Theater, as we'll find out. And he's just super excited to be here. And his name is Don Becker. Don, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great, Dan. Happy to be on here. Like I said, this has been a lifelong dream of mine to do Master Leaf Theater ever since 3 weeks ago when you had Dom read the Chris Drury surrender letter.
Yeah, Dom really, he's a pioneer, and he really has inspired a lot of great people to take up the Master Leaf Theater, torch. Now, are you a fan of like a particular artist in Master Leaf Theater, or just sort of a fan of the genre in general, and us doing our thing to make fun of the Leafs?
It's the genre. I mean, to be fair, it's like, it's hard to pick, just one, whether it's Siegel or reporter Chris, or, who we're ending with. I feel like who we're ending with is kind of a cheat code for making fun of the Leafs and their coverage. So,
yeah.
And this is the rare instance with no Luke Fox jukebox. Like, this is kind of a rare thing here for us. So we're going to be looking at some newer, well, not newer, but
remind me that I do have a theory on that.
I
was thinking about this today and noticed his absence, but I have a theory on why he's not involved here. So
interesting.
Don't let me forget to give that theory, because I will forget.
No, that's a great idea. No, we'll bring that up before our big conclusion. As Don mentioned, another Hall of Famer coming in at the end to close us out. But we've done a lot of dancing around it. Let's get to the actual story right now. And this all came about in 2015. The Leafs hired a Dr. Jeremy Bettel to become the team's director of sports science and performance. He worked on medical, strength and conditioning, and rehabilitation, all that kind of stuff that every team has. After a couple of years under Bettel, the Leafs started losing less and less man games. In fact, in the 2018-19 season, they had the 3rd fewest man games lost in the NHL. But following that season, Bettel left the team. He joined the Anaheim Ducks. He was replaced by a guy named Rich Rotenberg, who was then the Leafs performance director and now is with Kyle Dubas in Pittsburgh. Why Jonas Siegel is talking to this Dr. Jeremy Bettel, we have absolutely no idea, and we're going to find out what he has to say. Before we get into that, Don, did you hear about this story before we talked about you doing this for Master Leaf Theater? Like, had this story kind of come across your radar? And if so, what did you think of it?
I actually hadn't, but, thankfully you got me caught up pretty quickly by sending me the Siegel article. I mean, I remember there were a couple of years where the Islanders, I forget which year it was, but there was a year where they lost Calaposo early in the season, maybe even in preseason. And then they lost Strite, and I think they had something like 200 man games lost.
Yeah.
And it was just, it felt like just a comedy of errors in a lot of ways. Just how many, like, who's going to get hurt now?
Right.
So
Yeah.
Reading this, I mean, especially remembering, Stefan Robidas and his
Right.
his disappearing act.
Yeah.
You know, the Leafs had always had problems with that, and then just reading up on Bettle and the fact they went from having like the second most man games lost to like the third fewest in just the span of like 2 years. That's a guy I feel like you keep on your payroll until he retires. Honestly,
You would think that, but it's the NHL and people come and go and they lose their jobs. And this guy lost his in 2019, and yet somehow he is back to haunt the Leafs. And we're going to find out what this is all about. So, Don, if you will, please read us part 1 of tonight's special Master Leaf Theater episode that kind of sets up what it is that we're about to deal with here.
injuries have been a major sore spot for the team this season. The relatively high age of the group and a compressed schedule due to the Olympics have both likely played a part in that. Injury levels are high across the league. Still, Bettle says he believes the decision to enter the season without a director of sports science has been a factor too. It's gone back to being a traditional hockey club now, Bettle said in a recent interview. It's back to how it was before I arrived. It's like it never happened. It's absolutely why they have more injuries.
Perfect. Okay. So this guy was let go in 2019. He was replaced by another guy who is now also gone. And to his mind, that's why the Leafs keep getting hurt, is because they don't have a director of sports science. There's a lot of reasons why the Leafs might be getting hurt, but I don't think not having a director of sports science is one of them. But this is the thrust of tonight's episode of Master Leaf Theater. This guy thinks that him not being there is why the Leafs keep getting hurt. Mike, what did you think of this first article when it first came across your radar? It's a lot. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it is. And I think we need to keep harping on the fact that this guy has been gone for 7 years.
Yeah.
and as a reporter, especially one who takes himself as seriously as Jonas Siegel, and he's up there in terms of people whose impact on society at large, in how compared to how seriously he takes him and how big his impact he thinks his impact is. I mean, we're talking universes between those two things. The fact that he thought that this was a story to dig up because, well, Jonas Siegel has a vendetta against the current Toronto Maple Leafs because they're not winning and they're his favorite team. And he's upset that this would be like you if the Islanders were struggling this season and you and me are we're trying to figure out why, and we're pointing to the new sports psychologist that they hired, right? We're like, oh God, why did they bring that doctor in? Like she's messing with their heads too much. But he's run out of real estate when the answers are pretty plain, right? Like just not as good as other teams in the league. Right. There's 32 teams in the league, and the Leafs are one of them, and they're probably like the 19th best. And for most people on the outside, we're like, yeah, this team doesn't look that scary anymore because one of your best players just left for free, and you chased a lot of the other guys out of town, and doesn't seem like anyone likes playing. But that can't be the answer, because everybody wants to be a Toronto Maple Leaf and play for Jonas Siegel's favorite team. But so yeah, he goes back and starts digging this up, and makes us, like I said, as a reporter, if somebody who was let go from 7 years ago reaches out and is like, I have the answers, that I used to be the director of sports science, I'd be like, okay, I'll take the call, sure. And then if I hear him, I'd be like, yeah, man, I don't know about that, but I thanks for calling. I don't think that this is going anywhere, especially in, this is supposed to be like the standard bearer for sports reporting, right? The Athletic at this point. That's how they present themselves, chest out and all. And I would say that this is something that if the Minnesota Wild, like a blogger for the Minnesota Wild or a smaller team, tried to like put this out there, everyone would be like, what? That's just somebody trying to like make it. Did they just know maybe that doctor was their dad's friend or something, and they were trying to make a story out, like get their name out there? This is something. And but it also this article underscores another theme to the season for Toronto, which has been one of my favorites, which is they are, believe it or not, the first team in NHL history to have more than one player get hurt in a season. Because that's if
Right.
you look up there, they're like, I can't believe another Leaf got hurt last night.
Right.
And the man in charge will dispel those rumors later on in the show. But this is, God, once again, who is it? Who is in charge over there being like, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's run this.
Right. Well, my low-key favorite part of that whole short excerpt, expertly read by Don, by the way, is that it says, Bettel said in a recent interview. Yeah, with you. This is the interview. Like, this is the interview you're reading right now. He gave it recently, and we're publishing it because we think, like you said, we have uncovered this sort of secret. Like, it's impossible for a team to have multiple guys injured during the season. Something must be afoot. And that thing is the schedule, which has been causing all kinds of havoc. And also, the Leafs are an older team. They have guys that get hurt. And frankly, they have had guys that get hurt all the time. Chris Tanev, Anthony Stolarz. These are dudes that are literally always hurt in their career. So when they keep getting hurt, why do you think that is? Because they're always hurt. So this to me was hilarious. And it's only going to get funnier as the Dr. Jeremy Bettel story continues. Don, if you would, please read part 2. This is from the same article, and this is just a little bit more about Bettel and his relationship with a previous Leafs administration, which we're going to hear a little bit more about later as well.
Bettel, who has a PhD in human performance, a master's in exercise science, and another degree in sport and exercise science, interviewed with the Leafs, still without a head coach or GM at that point, and was among the 5 finalists. The team then hired Mike Babcock as head coach, and soon after, Bettel arrived in Toronto for yet another interview, this time with Babcock and Mark Hunter, the other assistant GM of the team. 2 old-school hockey guys he would have to win over. What are you going to do about Phil Kessel? Bettel remembers them asking him with a laugh about the winger who was traded to Pittsburgh soon after.
Thank you. That was beautiful again. I love that this is what constitutes hockey humor. What are you going to do about Phil Kessel? Just nothing. No backstory, no context. You're just supposed to know what the joke was and picture these guys in a room together. This is just, I love that he's got all these PhDs. Oh, sorry. Another thing that I love about this is the timeline is super important to Jonas. They had no head coach or GM when they hired Bettel because, frankly, had they had Mike Babcock, they probably wouldn't have hired this quack. That's my takeaway from this. And then they hired Babcock and Mark Hunter, the 2 old school hockey guys. This is really great. I just love that, like, their first question is, what are you going to do with the guy who loves hot dogs? Like, that's the other funny thing. Mike, what'd you make of this part?
As you said, like, it's the timeline here, which is, I got to keep driving this point home. This interview happened like
2016.
Yeah.
Or 2015, sorry.
Almost over a decade ago.
Right.
Over a decade ago, and this is now being unearthed and being, once again, huge sports market here, the biggest in the sport, the kind of hub of Canadian sports media, and this is now, no matter what, if one of the reporters following this team writes a story, it's going to get picked up, it's going to get parsed, it's going to get aggregated, and it's going to get spun around, and it's going to turn into something bigger than it is. It's not, no story in today's sports media climate just is an article that gets put out by a reporter. Then, a couple people working for the Hockey News or, Maple Leafs blogs or the Nation Network or whatever, then take this article, parse it through, and then make sensationalistic headlines out of it. And then those are the ones that get shared around social media and turn into the discourse, which should, in this case, was the Maple Leafs don't believe in science. They don't believe in doctors. And so, like, that literally, like, we're 10 days after the Marner thing. The Leafs are wobbling. The ship's sinking slowly, and this is what comes up. And this story obviously made its way around. Other people get asked. I remember Elliot Friedman getting asked on the radio that he does every day on the Fan Hockey Show, and he was like, I don't like to make fun of other people's reporting, but it's kind of a weird one, and like just totally was uncomfortable even discussing it because he, like us, is I'm still trying to figure out what the end game here is, other than Jonas being like,
Right.
I gotcha.
Yes.
You know?
Right. It is a huge gotcha. I mean, in Jonas's mind, it is an enormous
It's
gotcha.
It's one of those scenes in like a movie where there's one of the settings is a newsroom, and the dogged reporter comes running in with like a paper or his notebook in his hand, and he slaps it against his hand to his editor, and he goes, I got him. And like that's how I imagine this going down with Jonas and the folks over there at
he's like that. He's like that GIF of Antonio Banderas from the movie Assassins, where he's looking at his laptop and he just leans back and he goes, ooh, like, like we've all seen that GIF. Like that's Jonas in this case. He's Antonio Banderas. I don't know, Don, what do you make of this section here? I mean, again, we can picture guys like Babcock and Hunter. They're going to come up in the next section too, like staring this guy down, and Jonas is trying to make this into this confrontation where the plucky underdog doctor wins over the hockey guys. I mean, is there a like an analogy you can come up with to like, drive home this conflict that Jonas thinks is so important?
Well, it's what's funny is I feel like Mike and I are playing good cop, bad cop with the doctor, and I think we'll hear a little bit more about this in the next part of it. But just like the whole thing about like, what are you going to do about Phil Kessel? Oh, I don't know. I guess trade him to Pittsburgh and let him eat hot dogs out of the Stanley Cup for the next two summers.
Great plan, Doc. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, this is that's perfect. All right, so. But this is, these guys would be working together for the next couple of years, and it wouldn't be long before Bettel, in his role as the director of sports science and performance, would have to, play bad cop or good cop, I'm sure in his mind, to Mike Babcock and the other old hockey men running the Leafs, including Lou Lamoriello, who I guess is around. He doesn't get mentioned in the article, unfortunately, but this is another great instance here that clearly came right out of Bettel's mouth to Jonas's fingers in the keyboard. So Don, if you will, please read us part 3.
The first real test came when Bettel noticed something in the tracking data, which showed Joffrey Lupul was straining one side of his groin over the other, and then vice versa. Bettel recommended that Lupul sit out in rehab. That was the first time we had to proactively talk to Mike and be like, hey, something's happening here, Bettel recalled. And he's like, well, we don't know what that is. Eventually, he convinced Babcock that a blow-up was coming if the team didn't act, and indeed, Lupul, after playing in 46 games, would require season-ending, and ultimately career-ending, sports hernia surgery in February. We won the battle, Bettel said, but everybody got some scars from that.
Fantastic. This might be my favorite part of the whole thing, because he's talking about everybody got some scars for that. So now we're in war together. Now we're in battle together. We're in the foxhole together, all of us. Me, Babs, Mark Hunter, Joffrey Lupul, Phil Kessel, all these guys, we're all together in this war where we're trying to, drive the Leafs over the line and take what's ours. And we got into a battle and everybody's got some scars from that battle. Doc, I hate to break it to you, but I'm pretty sure the only guy with scars from this is Joffrey Lupul, who actually had sports hernia surgery. And I'm sure the scars in his case are very real. And if he can walk like a normal person now, I'd be very happy for Joffrey Lupul. This made me crack up. This is what kind of like got me into the idea of doing this, because when he says everybody got some scars from that, I'm like, guy, come on. Like, whose scars are we talking about here? What are you? Where are your scars? What scars? From what? Having to be in a room with Mike Babcock? I don't understand. Mike, this to me is great. I mean, and if you're like us and you were online at the time, you remember the whole Joffrey Lupul thing where he was going, this predates Robidas Island. The health of Lupul, who was a good player back then, was always kind of a question mark. And I guess Bettel was right there when the decision was made to shut him down, and that was the end of his career. So this brought back some good memories, but also kind of made me laugh about like, wow, this guy has a very high opinion of himself.
Yeah, I mean, this once again is someone reading, doing this interview and being like, okay, so we're gonna talk this emphatically as if this is a really important a thread of Maple Leaf history. The Joffrey Lupul injury, right? We all remember that. It's right up there with Austin Matthews' 4-goal game.
Right.
It's like, And the fact that he's like, yeah, we won that battle is, I would love to ask Mike Babcock or anyone else on the staff to be like, hey, you remember when Dr. Bettel told you that Joffrey Lupul was like leaning to one side and not the other, and he told you that his groin is going to explode, and then he got hurt, and I told you so, and won that battle. You remember that? He'd be like, no, get the hell away from me. He'd probably punch me in the face or do have my teammates bully me like he had Mitch Marner. Once again, like, trying to get into Jonas's head is a dangerous game, right?
Right.
And he's been trying his best to general manage the Leafs from his podcast and from his columns, and be like, do this, don't do that, and nobody's listening to me. And so
we are.
Yes, we certainly are. Jonas, not only are we listening, man, we are ear to the ground here.
I'm not even sure James Mirtle, his co-host, is listening to it when he's on the podcast. Have you ever heard their podcast?
No,
it'd be hard to.
It's so bad, but I am hopelessly addicted to it, like everything else that comes out of that hub. But as he's writing this, like when he gets to this point, I'd be like, if I'm writing this story, I'd be like, what the hell am I doing?
Right.
Why am I writing about the Joffrey Lupul sports hernia surgery in that happened in 2016, 10 years ago, and trying to relate it to the problems of the 2025-26 Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right.
These guys, none of these guys even played with him. So like what, maybe Morgan Riley and Willie Nylander, maybe if any of them did, like, what does this have to do with anything? But as we said, it ends up taking a life of its own. So it's insane that this was the grenade that Jonas decided to lob into the Ford Performance Center.
Right. Yes, of course. Our cover photo always of the Ford Performance Center. Don, you did a good job in relaying the scars and the blow up. That's my other favorite thing. A blow up was coming. What blow up? Joffrey Lupul's hernia? Like, I don't know, his groin? What blow up? He's gonna be like, I'm hurt? Like, I don't understand.
Siegel's writing this like he's picturing Mike Babcock driving to a bait shop to buy a box of leeches. Like, I'll fix them.
Right. Yeah. Right. And like, listen, Mike Babcock is now a disgraced persona non grata in hockey circles. We could accept that, but also like the picture of him in this room with this doctor saying, Joffrey Lupul is leaning to one side and his groin is about to snap. We really should get him out of there. I could just imagine the look on his face and being like, why am I talking to this guy again? Anyway, it was very good. You really captured that tension in that room, which must have been something to behold.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are coming to the end of this first integral part of our Master Leaf Theater episode. And that is, this kind of comes towards the middle, but it's going to serve as the conclusion of this part. And then we'll get to the other parts as well. Where, like Mike said, we start to tie these issues back to the current Leafs team, which, by the way, is not having a good season. Frankly, we're going to get back to that in a little bit too. And so we get Bettel's sort of, thesis again here about how not having a sports science director is what's causing the Leafs to have all these injuries. So, Don, if you will, please read part 4 for us.
The Leafs have already lost nearly 200 man games to injury this season, 8th most in the NHL, including prolonged absences to Chris Tanev, Brandon Carlo, and Anthony Stolarz, as well as the first spate of injuries in William Nylander's career. They were 11th last season. You need someone with domain knowledge in that impartial position leading the department, Bettel said. You've got to know when the trainer's right and when he's wrong, and when the strength coach is right and when he's wrong. That's something that the general manager is not equipped to do, or the coach. And while data was important, Bettel added, the job entailed an understanding of the team and culture and the importance of certain games, i.e. playoffs versus regular season, in the cost-benefit analysis. My phrase to the staff was always, we are a hockey club, we are not a sports science club, Bettel said. We can prevent every single injury if we just stop them playing hockey, but that's not really the point, is it?
I think this also lends to what you were saying, Mike, where, like, why would Jonas do this? Why is he so bent on making this a story? And I think it's right there where Don read that this was the first spate of injuries for William Nylander's career. So something clearly must be wrong if this otherwise healthy young man is all of a sudden getting hurt. Oh, I got it. It's because they fired their sports science director in 2019 and the guy who replaced him a couple of years ago. And wait, that guy's working with Kyle Dubas. We haven't really talked about that. But yeah, this one, I just thought this was very funny. And like, I like how he's like, it's not only a sports science club. So don't think that I'm too important, but please remember that I am very important. That's my big takeaway from this whole thing. What's yours?
Yeah, it's that first paragraph, which is like, so the Leafs have already lost 200-man games to injury this season, 8th most in the NHL. That means there are 7 other teams who are more banged up than the Toronto Maple Leafs, but there's only one who we're getting a deep dive into the history of their sports science department and acting as if they are, this is a crucial crossroads of their franchise and a huge failure on the part of their current regime, who Jonas clearly is not a fan of. If you listen to his podcast, he always says, whoever's going to be in charge next year, because he clearly wants them to fire the GM, who is Brad Treliving and is not famously not Kyle Dubas. I don't know if this happens under Dubas's watch. In fact, I do know that if this happens under Dubas's watch, this is chalked up to, well, what are you going to do? Like, it's just, that's part of the game. This is how things work. It's bad luck, and it's not Kyle's fault. It's not his fault that guys got hurt. It happens to every team. It's not just the Leafs, but because it's happening under Brad Treliving, who is not Jonas's good friend in Jonas's mind, and who is, maybe responds to text messages when he says, happy holidays, saying like, yeah, you too, man, see you around the rink. That this is a huge failure. This is it. This is a dereliction of duty on the part of the current regime, because as you noted, right, the other guy is overseas in Pittsburgh with Dubas. So, and then they've made a big deal about Kyle Dubas taking their director of scouting too, and the Leafs haven't really developed too many young players, and both under Dubas and Treliving. But when they talk about that, it's a failure of Brad Treliving, who's been there for like 1.5 drafts, with the Leafs having no draft picks to really work with. And everyone's like, he's done a terrible job at the draft. He's terrible job developing. Well, like, he didn't have anything to work with. But yeah, so this is classic from Jonas here. Like, not only are they losing games on the ice, not only are they playing dump and chase old caveman hockey under Chief Berube, they are also they've also completely ignored hard, cold medical science. Right. And that's why William Nylander got hurt for the first time ever. William Nylander got hurt. and I'm sure Willie says the same thing. Hey Willie, why'd you get hurt? They fired Dr. Bettel in my rookie year.
Well, it's actually funny you mentioned that, because again, the guy that they replaced Bettel with, Rich Rotenberg, was fired, and in a follow-up story, Nylander says he's missed. And so in a way, he is thinking that. But again, I feel like Dr. Bettel's, like, despite all that wall of achievements and doctorates and stuff like that, it sounds like his kind of like overarching medical concept is step on a crack, break your mother's back. Like, that's sort of what it sounds like here, where he's like, I'm not saying that I prevented all these injuries, but I am definitely saying that I prevented all these injuries. And I just love when he's like, you got to know when the trainer's right and when he's wrong, and when the strength coach is right and when he's wrong. And I have a feeling that he did a lot of telling people they were wrong during his time with the Leafs, which again ended 7 years ago. But I don't know, Don, maybe I'm miscategorizing him. Like, you seem to have a different idea of the doctor here than we do, but just like, it feels as if he's putting himself in a position where, like, he does feel like, he was the sort of like protective wall between the Leafs and a spate of very human injuries for, what a normal hockey player would go through in his career.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Dr. Bettel is looking at, the Lupul case and being like, if only Babcock had listened to me, and we'd gotten him into rehab, 20 games sooner. I mean, would that have saved Lupul's career? I mean, maybe not. I mean, he was injured like every year pretty much since the Leafs got him.
Right.
So I don't know if he's necessarily the best example. But I also, like, as I'm reading this, I'm also sitting here thinking about what level of crap that somebody like Art Staple would get if he wrote an article trying to tie Romanov and Palmieri's injuries to that time Kyle Oposo detached his retina 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what we do here. Like, how does any other team, like, seriously, I mean, have the Columbus Blue Jackets ever had a healthy season? Like, it feels like they have a guy getting hurt every year that just scuttles the entire season. How many strength and conditioning coaches have they had? Like, probably a few. And I can't imagine Aaron Portzline getting them all on the phone and being like, so when they fired you 10 years ago, when Doug McClain fired you back in 1999,
yeah,
like, you know, what was, or actually, I don't think they were around in 2004. Like, what happened? So, yeah, this is
right.
The whole thing is just very strange. And it's also, as you pointed out, very Siegel.
It's also from a different era, too, which is also, I find very funny here. It's like, he's talking about how he did things back in, 2015, 16, 17, whatever. That's 9 years ago in real life, and like 3 generations ago in the NHL. Like, Macklin Celebrini was 9 years old or something when this guy was hired. Like, it's a different league, and it's like the influence of like data and player management and all that, and players like speaking up for themselves is completely different too. So and Jonas is always someone who points out like those holes in arguments from the old caveman archetypes of, the Nick Kyprios types of hockey commentators. Like, that's just talking from a different, that's talking like the 1999 Red Wings. Why do we keep referring to they could be like the Red Wings when Brendan Shanahan's Red Wings? That's a completely different era. Like, you're just writing an entire article about a different era right now, Jonas. So and trying to blanket it into this, and trying to solve the problems of this season.
But to that point, that's also kind of where I feel a little bad for the doctor here, because he walks right into a situation where he's got 2 guys, a coach and an assistant GM, that really just don't seem to put that much scope or that much weight into strength and conditioning to the same level that Dr. Bettle does.
Right.
So
yeah, no,
I kind of understand that. I understand Siegel's angle on that, but just listening to like this, this lionized speech, it's like, it almost sounds like he was making a case to put Bettle's name up in the rafters at Scotia.
Right next to John Bon Jovi's.
kept William Nylander healthy.
Right.
Yeah, but the 3 greatest Leafs. You have Dave Keon, you have Dr. Bettle, and John Bon Jovi.
Yeah, seriously. No, that's all. Those are all great points. Like, it's just it's just very funny to me that, like, I'm also thinking of Joffrey Lupul, who may or may not have been like doing whatever recently, and somebody might have texted him and been like, "Dude, what is going on with this?" I just reading The Athletic. Did you know about this? Like, this kind of conversation. He's like, just leave me out of this. He might still be getting paid by the Leafs. I don't know if his buyout is still going on, but. And now a word from our sponsors. VintageIceHockey.com. Over 100 classic hockey logos on t-shirts, jerseys, hats, mugs, and more. Long Island Ducks, Albany Riverettes, Danbury Trashers, Kentucky Thoroughblades, and so many more. Plus a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch, with our portion of the sales going directly to the Center for Dementia Research. These incredible items cannot be found in stores, so shop VintageIceHockey.com today. Relax, sit back, and enjoy wine from The Pinot Project. Rosé, Pinot Grigio, or a Pinot Noir that was named a Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. These wines are delicious, affordable, and available at area wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com, and please drink responsibly. We do know that a bunch of people read this because, as Mike mentioned before, it started making the rounds. Elliot Friedman was talking about it. They were talking about it on the Nick Kyprio, Real Kipper and Bourne show that we love. But there's another guy who read the article, and he didn't like it one damn bit. And that guy is current Leafs general manager, Brad Treliving, who had a few things to say about this article, by God. And where did he say them? Well, a couple places. The first one was on, not Sportsnet, but their distinguished competition, TSN, who have their Overdrive show hosted by Jeff O'Neill and former Weird Islander Jamie McLennan. And who's the other guy? What the hell's his name? Brian something or other. And they had Treliving on for, I think, what's probably a normal, thing with them. But they brought up the article, and he did not hold back. And so rather than playing the actual audio, which I'll put the clip in if you want to hear Treliving go off on this article, please by all means do. But Don, if you will, please read a transcript of Brad Treliving's words to TSN Overdrive on January 29th, when the subject of this article by Jonas Siegel came up.
With this particular article, I just take issue with it, and I stick up for our medical staff. I think the slant of the article is, quite frankly, completely incorrect. The insinuation that we've cut back in any way, shape, or form in terms of the medical, performance, or any of the care of our players is simply incorrect. It's wrong. The gentleman that was quoted in the article is a previous staff member here. This is my third year. I've never met him. He hasn't been around to see the inner workings of our staff. I would put our medical team and the care our players get amongst the very best, not only in the NHL, but in professional sports. So I think the article is not a true indication of the care our players get. I don't know this Dr. Beffel, but that's exactly how it works. No member of the coaching staff, no member of the management makes any decisions with respect to the players' health, with players' return to play. We have a full, comprehensive process that is directed by our medical directors. The position we had last year, which I think where Jonas has gone down the rabbit hole, is in titles. We've gone from a sports performance director to a sports performance coordinator.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I love this. When I listened to this, and I listened to it a couple of times, obviously, to transcribe that, when he said Dr. Beffel, I died. I just lost it. He knows the guy's name. He just completely biffed it for obvious reasons. Yep. And then the fact that he's like, this sound, I mean, you did a perfect job reading it, but it very much sounded like the PR people were like, this is what you got to say. And he went through the whole thing, but this was fantastic. I mean, Don, did you get a chance to listen to, I know some actors don't want, if they're doing a part that somebody else did, they don't want to take in that part because they want to make their own choices. Did you listen to the Overdrive section here, or did you just go in, with your own choices?
Oh, I'm more of a method guy. I actually took over and worked for the Toronto Maple Leafs as GM for the last 3 weeks, just to really get the. No, I didn't listen to it. I mean, apologies to Noodles and O-Dog, but I don't listen to Overdrive all that often.
I don't either, because the other guy.
There's too much other stuff. Yeah, there's too much other good stuff. I'll pop it on when I know Jonas is on the warpath, but other than that, like when he was talking about a couple of years ago when the Leafs were in a good run of form, and he's, oh my God, if they win the cup and like they could do it, like John Tavares is gonna have a street named after him in the Portuguese Quarter in Toronto. And I was like, thank you, Jonas. This is exactly why I tune in, just to hear some stuff like that, so I can then go back and think about it when they get eliminated in the first round. But this is yes, exactly. This is one of the great crescendos here. I think, because one I love doing Master Leaf Theater, but one of the most frustrating parts about it is that it's a very isolated experience, right? Like it's an inside joke. It's our podcast and our podcast community. It's just thriving and vibrant and funny and full of incredibly clever people and great voice actors. But I wish we could get more of these kind of things where the people who are the subject matter or part or even adjacent to it, like Treliving kind of is here, would weigh in, because it validates it a little bit. Like when Jonas did his incredibly emotional trip to Vegas to talk about how Mitch Marner, even though he says he likes playing for the Las Vegas Golden Knights, he actually hates it, because I can tell, and he can. I'm wrong. Mitch is right about Mitch, that we could hear from Mitch, but he's too smart to dip his toes back in that mud. So it was really nice to hear this, and what I really like about this is it's like, yeah, it's sort of a dig at Dr. Beffel. Like he kind of slaps him across the face, but this is just Brad Treliving be like, listen, Jonas, man, like if you want to criticize me for trading for Matthias Michelli, go right ahead. But like the fact that he's got to answer for this, which is once again, this guy left in 2019, then the other guy left a couple years later, is unbelievable. And the line of the position that we had last year, which I think is where Jonas has gone down the rabbit holes, is in titles. We have gone from a sports performance director to a sports performance coordinator, being like, yeah, it's a complete crock and an absolute waste of time. And for Jonas Siegel, who is, once again, a guy who works for TSN and a guy who works for The Athletic. So Tree, man. He really gets me on his team on this one. Like I'm loving this. I would love to see him, kind of roll up the sleeves a little bit more with these guys, because this was a brilliant response from him and the PR machine, because it just makes Jonas feel incredibly small and be like, I'm also on the show that Jonas comes on, saying that he's going down an absolute waste of time rabbit hole about corporate speak and but the difference between a sports performance director and a sports performance coordinator. So he basically says like this entire article is worthless, which makes me happy.
Yeah, Treliving is kind of fighting a couple of different battles here. One is he wants to squash the idea that this guy has anything relevant to say about the Leafs at all, and that the article has any merit at all. But he's also fighting the idea, because he knows that people are going to run with this, that the Leafs are cutting corners, like that they're firing staff members, they're laying people off, and that has contributed to this bad season they're having. And he knows that is like tinder and on a dry forest, covering. Like he knows that any tiny little hole that looks like, oh, great, now the Leafs are pinching pennies, is going to become an enormous problem. And so he's trying to stamp that out as well by saying, look, we have a person doing this. We have a ton of staff members doing just this. We just change the titles around. And so we don't have a director. We have a coordinator. We have this. We have that. We have a whole department for this. It's not that we're cutting staff members. We just change some titles around, and that's where he's getting off. But at the same time, as a guy who is, in hockey, he's pretty pissed off. Like he's getting visibly audibly angry at this whole thing. And I can't even imagine what he said to people before he got on the radio about this article. It must have been really something, I'm assuming this is the very, very, very watered down version of what he was telling people in the state. Like his secretary probably has or got a real earful about what this was going on. But as I said before, that's not the only place Brad Treliving talked about this article and how bad it is. And in fact, the next place he did it was in The Athletic, to Jonas Siegel, in a follow-up article entitled Brad Treliving Defends Maple Leafs Approach to Sports Science, dated 2 days later on the 29th of January 2006. And so this is he basically does a lot of reiterating what he said before. The article compresses a lot of what we talked about before. But there was a thing here, and I just thought it was a great way to wrap this section up. Don, if you will, please read part 5 for us, Brad Treliving's final word on this article by Jonas Siegel.
The Leafs general manager reached out Thursday morning as fans and league observers reacted to the story online, and said that the team, even if it hasn't hired someone with the same title, has addressed the vacancy through the redistribution of duties and other staff additions. You guys get wrapped up in one guy's fancy title, Treliving said. I don't get wrapped up in titles. I get wrapped up in people doing the jobs.
That was amazing. And if I may say so, that was perfect. I feel like you threw a little Brian Burke in there as well. Is that true? I sensed a little truculence in there in the words of Brad Treliving. He might have thrown a little Brian Burke in there as well for a line.
I mean, it's hard not to throw a little bit of truculence in when you're talking about the Leafs.
Of course.
Gritensity.
Right. No, that was absolutely fantastic.
But I'm also picturing Treliving reading this article in The Athletic, from the original article from Siegel, and being like, "Leave my coordinator alone, you ass."
Right. Right.
Seriously. Yeah, he's just pissed off. And this is his story. He's sticking to it. We have people, just different people with different titles, but you could tell that the longer this has gone on, the angry he's gotten, right, Mike? Like, you can almost feel that, just the words are just like, man, he's not happy about this.
Yeah, exactly. And we didn't even think about that. Whoever the sports science coordinator now is like, there's that meme about like Charlie Batch, like in like the playoffs. I don't know if it's this NFL season or whatever. Someone was like, Lamar Jackson in the regular season, then Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, and like they show a picture of Charlie Batch, and he's always like, "Why am I always catching strays in the playoffs or whatever?" and so this poor sports science coordinator, whoever they are, is like, "Wait, why the hell is the guy who's like supposed to tell you about Matthew Nyes' next contract or if Anthony Stolarz is playing well or not talking about me?" Like he wouldn't even stop. Like he wouldn't know me if I walked past him in the Ford Performance Center, and I'm the one getting under. I'm under the knife here. No pun intended. As Don was saying, like that poor person, man. Like I'm happy that Tree stands up for them, because they must have been like, Tree, like you don't believe what Jonas is saying. He's like, absolutely fucking not. Like this is crazy. But my favorite part of this section, and maybe one of the best parts of this entire article, is the first line of this segment, which is Jonas patting himself on the back, which I love. Which is, the Leafs general manager reached out on Thursday morning as fans and league observers reacted to the story online. Like, oh, my story was huge. My story. That's why he's reached out. No, Jonas, he's reached out because like you're like sort of flirting with libel here. Like you're getting relatively, you're getting like in this, you're not there yet, but you're getting like in the same universe. And if this guy didn't stand up and like respond to you with like an angry, "Hey, you better fucking call me back," he's not doing his job. So I love it. Like Jonas is playing the hits. It's been a couple good weeks from him with the Marner stuff, and now this. And if they do end up, whatever they do at the trade deadline is going to be wrong. And so I'm excited to see what he's got to say about that, and especially if like Kyle Dubas ends up making a couple of trades, and he's gonna be like, "You look over there, and Kyle Dubas is making tidy pieces of business left to right, and what's our guy doing?" So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. So you just mentioned the trade deadline, and that is actually where this story is going to come to a close. Not with Jonas Siegel, but with Jonas's podcast partner, James Mirtle. And a couple of days before this whole thing blew up in everybody's face, James Mirtle had written an article, just a very normal kind of thing that you would write at this time, called "Why the Maple Leafs Need to Start Thinking About Selling." This was when the Leafs had, I think, lost 6 games in a row at some point. And James Mirtle, who is never the most optimistic person in the Leafs world, decided that the time for joking around is over. They need to get rid of a bunch of guys here and start looking towards next season. But here's the thing. Even next season, depending on what happens this season, might not be all that good. And so, Don, if you will, please read the conclusion of this Master Leaf Theater. This is basically as a way to not forget that despite all of this, despite the firing of the sports performance guy, despite the injuries, despite the general manager being pissed off, the Leafs still might miss the playoffs, which is kind of an immediate problem to have. And so, Don, will you please read the stirring conclusion of this special episode of Master Leaf Theater?
Despite boasting an army of AGMs, the Leafs don't have anyone in the front office who makes sense to step in and make decisions if Treliving is an ownership's guy. And getting this next stage of the retool right is going to be critical if they want to have a bounce back next season. If they keep sitting on their hands, however, they may miss the playoffs, give up a top 10 pick to a division rival, lose their pending UFAs for nothing, hang on to their deadweight contracts, recoup 0 futures, get another year older, and leave a giant mess for the next GM to clean up in a very short window in the offseason. could just land them back here again a year from now, asking the same sad questions about whether this group has anything left to give.
Other than that, everything's going great.
Yeah, God forbid the Leafs lose a pending UFA for nothing.
Yeah, no. That would be the worst.
Crimea River.
That would be the worst. Yeah. Oh man, this is classic Mirtle. Believe it or not, on Master Leaf Theater, we actually don't do a lot of Mirtle. Like
he's not good enough.
He kind of comes in, he hits these like doubles and triples, and they're very like.
He's whiny. He's like, like you got to be better than whiny, right? We can find people whining about sports team in any market, right? Nobody's doing, a master Washington Nationals theater over there. Their beat writer being like, they're having a terrible year. This is a horrible move. But that's what he does. He's very, if it's his friend in charge, everything is going great, smart, shrewd. Not making a mistake, going to win the Stanley Cup again, like they did last year and the year before that and the year before that. They always just keep winning all these Stanley Cups under this guy with the thick glasses. But now that his friend isn't in office, it's just he's having a tantrum. And that second paragraph is just a tantrum because like this is a classic bit of Athletic prose, because what I think the Athletic has turned into, and maybe they're not unique in this, but I do think that they do it more than anyone, is they say things that if you're subscribing to the Athletic, it means you're invested in the team that you're subscribing for. So you're probably a pretty big fan. And he's explaining that if this general manager stands pat at the trade deadline, they might miss the playoffs. They might have to give up their pick that they traded away, might go to a division rival, because that's what happens when you make a trade where you give away. You don't get to just take that pick back. They might lose their pending UFAs for nothing. They might their players might come back on deadweight contracts. They if they don't make any trades, they don't get any future assets, and they'll get older. They're not going to get younger. Like, yes, James, all of this is understood. If they keep sitting on their hands, that means nothing happens. That's all you need to say. Yeah, rather than go into this whole like, can you guys believe what Tree's going to do? And the second bit is, none of this has happened yet. Yeah. Like he's writing this from a point of view of, oh my God, this guy is such an idiot. He doesn't even know the trade deadline's coming. He doesn't know that he's such an idiot that he doesn't realize that the Leafs need to sell. Right. Like what could happen if they sit on their hands? I need to tell him. I mean, these two guys, if you listen to their podcast, it's a lot of this. Like, this is James having these kind of weird tantrums where he's just like 1 centimeter away from slamming his fist on the tables because he's like, "What did this GM wake up? Is he even at the office? Is he at the Ford Performance Center?" And Jonas smoking something crazy and being like, James, I think it's the sports science department to blame.
Right. Yeah, they always come to this stuff, as if, like you said right at the very beginning, they're the only team that has injuries. They're the only team that's going to miss the playoffs. They're the only team that has pending UFAs. They're the only team that, doesn't have any first round picks next year. Like, guys, we know. We've all been here. You guys pretend like other teams don't exist, but we have experienced this. And we all laughed when Don just said, "Oh no, what if they lose a free agent for nothing?" We know, because we've seen it happen. They've seen it happen, but because they have no memory of any of this stuff, they just forget everything. And because they don't care about the rest of the league, they don't understand. Like, we have seen all of this happen, and yeah, it sucks sometimes. But what are you going to do? I mean, how many years in a row did Garth Snow pick up, whatever that year's Brandon Davidson was, like, or Tyler Kennedy? We've seen all that. That's it at the trade deadline. Yep. Oh, and the Islanders went out in the first round. Yep. That happens, So these guys are constantly acting as if this stuff has never happened before in the history of the NHL. When in fact, in reality, it has happened to pretty much 31 other teams all the damn time. Don, what do you make of James here? I mean, I don't know if you're a listener to the Leafs Report podcast, and if you're not, please don't become one, because it is absolutely true. But I mean, again, this is stuff that, I mean, if you talk to a cross section of NHL fans, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that happened to me. That happened to us in 2000, whatever." But yet these guys act as if it's never happened before.
Yeah, it's that same like I hate to criticize the Athletic as being nothing more than a propaganda wing for Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment or whatever the parent company is called at this point. But this is what I meant when I said that using James Mirtle was kind of a cheat code for Master Leaf Theater, because he always comes in with these, these precious things that the Leafs just don't do, and they're happening to them, and it's like, do you not remember Harold Ballard? I mean,
right.
Myrtle's, I'm 52. Myrtle's a little younger than me, but I feel like I'm sure Mirtle has heard, Darryl Sittler cursing the ground that Ballard has walked on. And also, you don't want to give up a top 10 pick to a division rival? Don't trade a first rounder within the division for Brandon Carlo.
Right. Seriously.
Like, you don't want to lose your pending UFAs for nothing and have some other team benefit from that. Oh no.
Yeah, seriously. I know.
It's just I don't know if he's doing a bit or if it's just completely tone deaf.
I think it's the latter.
It's both.
It might be.
You can make a very clear case for both.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
right.
He talks like, I mean, and this isn't just him. Like, you'll hear it from other guys who are, and Mirtle has no excuse because he's covered the team for 15, 16, maybe 17 years now. They talk about this. They're like that they are the gold standard, right? Of this is like the model franchise in the NHL, the most well-run kind of thing, and that they've never had turbulence before. They've won 2 playoff series since putting together a super team a decade ago. And that's the good part. Because the part before that was years and years and years and years and years of incompetence. Like there's nothing there's not been much good. And they talk about like, I can't believe we've gotten to this point. Like, dude, you've been at this point. This is where this is like where you've been for this entire time. But you guys are so warped in the head that you've made it to be something completely different. Where you've won the Athletics preseason projection Stanley Cup, and that means, well, what else can you ask for, right?
And I think that's kind of the crux of why nobody feels bad for the Leafs.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's just it's just the way these guys talk, and
I love when it dawns on them. They're like, I think this is why people hate us. I'm like, just love hearing that.
Do you think? I mean, their podcast would be a lot more entertaining if they did realize that. But sometimes you do see that the kind of
it's not from them. No.
No.
James and Jonas or no. Oh, I forgot to say.
Yeah.
Why I think Luke Fox Jukebox didn't weigh in here.
Oh yeah.
That person who is the sports director and sports coordinator, whatever it is employed by Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, who are owned by majority owner is Rogers Sportsnet.
Right.
Who also signs Luke Fox Jukebox's paycheck.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Luke Fox, I don't think Luke Fox Jukebox is going to go too much further than talking about William Nylander looking pretty cool with his tarp off and a couple guys joking about getting off the sheet. Because if he goes any deeper than that, he could upset some bosses.
Right. And of course Elliot Friedman can get away with it. Because Elliot is
and even Elliot was like, I'm not touching that one. Like,
yeah, exactly. he said it was junk without saying it was junk.
Yeah,
but yeah, he can get away with that. In the words of Al Arbor, to paraphrase Al Arbor, Pat Flatley doesn't do drop passes. Pat Flatley goes into the corners. Mike Bossy can do drop passes. You're Pat Flatley. So Luke Fox Jukebox in this case is Pat Flatley, and Elliot Friedman is Mike Bossy. But yeah, no, that's a good point. I don't think you'll see this on Sportsnet anytime soon. And obviously this is a couple weeks old. But this has been fantastic, Don. You did a great job reading these things. You've done Dom proud. You've done us proud. You did a great job here.
He set a very high bar.
He did. And of course, our friend Michael Smith as well has also done some great readings for us. And so these are always much funnier when people that aren't us read them. So I'm always happy to bring on new people to read them. But like Mike said, this is sort of a niche thing. Hopefully we can get some other folks, guest readers to come on at some point. But no, this was good. I hope this fulfilled all of your dreams about being on Master Leaf Theater and doing some of these readings.
I mean, this was the last thing on my bucket list, so.
I won't say that. That's a lot of pressure. But no,
then I just have to come up with a new bucket list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right. That's good. That's good to hear. But yeah, no, this was great. The thing that I love about Master Leaf Theater, and we've talked about this, and like Mike said before, we love doing the bit. It's that you're never quite sure sort of who the antagonist is going to be in the story. Like a lot of times it's the Leafs media because they're completely ridiculous and they write about this team in a completely ridiculous way. Sometimes it's somebody at the Leafs who is doing something ridiculous because they do not act in a way that a normal team does. Sometimes, and they get themselves into trouble by stepping on rakes, and sometimes it's other people too. But in this case, I almost feel like the Leafs, in a way that's very rarely seen here on Master Leaf Theater, didn't really do anything wrong. Like the guy worked for them. He, by all accounts, did a good job. And then a time came up and he left and he went to get another job. And that was in 2019. So I don't know why. I still don't know why this all came up all of a sudden, because I don't think they did anything wrong here. Have they had a lot of injuries in the last few years? Yeah, but like we've been saying, so does everybody. You know, Treliving in another one of these articles basically said it's the schedule. Like the schedule is killing guys. Right. It's really rough. So this is a case in which I don't see the Leafs doing anything wrong here. And I'm not even 100% sure Jonas has done something wrong here, even though he probably shouldn't have written this whole thing because it just ended up creating this whole storm of controversy that nobody really needed. I just don't understand why this is happening. To me, the doctor is the guy kind of, the sort of secret antagonist of this whole thing, but I guess other people will have different interpretations. But I just love that you never quite know where the tension is coming from when it comes to Master Leaf Theater. Like it could be anybody. It could be the writer, the team, somebody else. We've had Austin Matthews blow off, press availabilities and stuff like that. We've had Jonas fly to Vegas to stalk, Mitch Marner and tell us all how unhappy he is, which doesn't make any sense at all. And again, Mitch Marner didn't do anything wrong. It's just kind of a weird story. So I don't know. This to me was a really interesting one because we had a new form of antagonist here. And I guess Jonas is definitely not innocent. Don't get me wrong, but this is just a very odd. It's just a very bizarre story that I found absolutely hilarious.
It's been a long time since the doctor was the focal point of any sort of hockey story.
Right.
My conspiracy theory here is that Jonas was because he said I interviewed this guy recently, and if this article came out at the end of January when the Leafs had just started their road trip, but they had just an absolute stinker of a homestand, and I'm sure him and Mirtle were like, I'm saving this one for because this will be the straw that gets Treliving back, fired, and maybe we can even get Kyle back. Maybe we could just call our boy home. And so I feel like this was a landmine from Jonas, or a ticking time bomb that he was just waiting to detonate. And he thought, as I said at the beginning, got him. I got him. Leafs are losing. Fired. This guy got fired 7 years ago. They have a sports coordinator and not a sports director, science director anymore. This will get. There's no way that Keith Pelly won't fire him. This is scandal. This is he wrote this as if it's like a scandal. That's what it is, right? He wrote this as if it's one of those the Mike Babcock scandals almost, right? It's that same sort of tone of prose. And Treliving's this is a non-story. And Brad, you're 100% right.
Right.
And welcome to Master Leaf Theater, buddy, because that's what this is all about.
Right. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it's like if you've ever had a friend. I mean, I know as a parent, my daughter does this all the time where they come in, guess what? And they have this incredible story. And it's the most mundane thing ever you've ever heard happens. And you're like, yeah. Or they're telling you about friends you've never met or heard of before. And you're like, what, do I know this person? But they were so excited. This is sort of like that. Like you said, Jonas chose this moment to pull the pin on this grenade and ended up with kind of a dud, which is great for us, for our entertainment, for your entertainment. We hope you've enjoyed this standalone special episode of Master Leaf Theater. Don, thank you again so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. We might have to get you on.
Always a pleasure. Anytime, fellas.
We'll let you know. And we hope you've enjoyed this. Mike, any final thoughts on the controversy that wasn't between the doctor, the doctor the Leafs fired in 2019, Joffrey Lupul, Brad Treliving, TSN, any of these people?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you had asked me before the season, how many Master Leafs theaters, if you like try to project out our season 5, 6, whatever we're on of Master Leaf Theater here from the Ford Performance Center Theater, where these guys' characters get assassinated. Their character gets assassinated. I would have guessed, good handful, 6, 7. Definitely would have had the Marner thing on my radar,
Sure.
for sure. But I would never in a million years have figured that we'd be having some laughs about Joffrey Lupo's groin and their sports science director from a decade ago. So yeah, this bit has gone into a new dimension, and I can't wait to see what pops up in future episodes.
With a spiteful mispronunciation of his name as
yes,
well.
Yeah, so good.
As a cherry on top. But yeah, no, this was a good one that we couldn't have seen coming. And we look for more. We hope for more as the Leafs and the rest of the NHL approaches the trade deadline. We'll see what they hopefully don't do that riles up Jonas and Mirtle again for the rest of the season. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this. Friday, Weird Islanders, a podcast. Also with a bit of a Leafs tint to it. I promise you're not going to want to miss it. It's great. And we'll be back on Sunday with our next episode of Islanders Anxiety before the Islanders resume their season. Sign up at patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety for ad-free episodes, bonus content, chats, the whole deal. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Read Lighthouse Hockey every day. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans for Sports Network. All right. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.